Hey guys, so here is the last part of our 7.4 notes. This is part 3. We are continuing using our 45, 45, 90 and 30, 60, 90 triangles to solve right triangles here. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We are finding the value of the variable, and of course, write your answer in simplest radical form. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, of course, label. I think that's always helpful. And then we are going to decide which general triangle we're going to use. Is it 45, 45, 90 or 30, 60, 90? Then set up our proportion and solve. Okay, so let's look here. We have the 90 degrees, 60, and 30, okay? And this probably will be very, knowledgeable. You can already see what type of general triangle we're going to use. But let's label first. Okay, remember across from the 90 degrees is the hypotenuse, okay? And then across from the 60 degrees, that side, that's going to be our longer leg. And then across from the 30 degrees, remember we want to go across, not right next to, but across. That's going to be our shorter leg. And pretty soon I'll kind of write this out so it's not as long. Okay, now notice what our angles are. We have not 30, 60, 90. So remember, when we have to do our similarity, we have to use the same triangle. So meaning we are going to use a 30, 60, 90 triangle to solve for our variable x, okay? So you have to use the same triangle, okay? So let's go ahead and set this up. So we have this triangle. I'm drawing the general triangle, okay? So here, I'm going to put 60 at the top. So this one, I would advise keeping the angles about the same to make it easier, okay? Now, you will have to go back to when we wrote the general triangle for our 30, 60, 90. So from the hypotenuse was 2. The longer leg, which is across from the 60, is square root of 3. And then the shorter leg, which is across from the 30 degrees, is 1. So that's what we're going to write here. So our hypotenuse, as we said, was 2, sorry. So we have 2. And then from the 30, it's going to be 1. And then square root of 3 from the 60. And I'm going to go ahead and label so we remember. This is our hypotenuse. I'm going to say longer leg, and I'm going to say shorter leg. There you go. So SL, and then that's an L if you need to know. Longer leg. Okay? So now let's go ahead and set up our proportion here. Now X. Let's go ahead and start off with that. So look at our first triangle. We have X. And that is represented by the longer leg. Now let's look, which one has the longer leg on our general 30, 60, 90 triangle? That's going to be the square root of 3. That's why labeling is going to be very, very important here, because it's going to make it so much easier just to figure out your proportion. There you go. I'm just going to write it out. There you go. So you can say short leg, long leg. You can do that as well if you need to. Okay. Equals. Now, what is the given number they give to us on the first triangle? It is 7 square root of 3. So notice that 7 square root of 3 is the shorter leg. Now let's look at what we did for a triangle. Which one's the shorter leg? That is the 1. Okay, let's go ahead. We are going to cross multiply and solve. So x times 1, we got x. And here we're not going to try to cancel because we can't do anything like that. Then we have 7 square root of 3 times square root of 3. Now this is looking similar to our last example, so example 3. So remember, we can only multiply numbers that are inside the radical. So 7 keeps the same, but we can do 3 times 3 to give us 9, and that stays under the radical until it is a perfect square, and we can take the square root of it. Now, is 9 a perfect square? Yes. Okay. So we have 7 times, what's the square root of 9? That is 3, and that comes outside. So now I just use 7 times 3, and that gives me 21, and that will be my final answer. Okay, let's go ahead and do example 5. Okay, first, let's label. Okay, remember, across from the 90 degree, or the box, that is always going to be our hypotenuse. Okay, across from the 30 degrees, that is our short leg. And across from the 60 degrees, that's going to be our long leg. Okay, now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and set up our general. I'm going to face it the same way, just so that it's a little bit easier. So I have 90 degrees, and then 30 is in the bottom, 60 is at top. Okay, now going back to our general triangle, remember across from the 90 degrees, that is going to be a 2. Okay, and then across from these 30 degrees, that is going to be a 1. And then across from the 60 is square root of 3. And I'm going to label just to remind ourselves. So 2 is our hypotenuse. 60 is our long leg. And the 30 will be with our short leg. Okay, now how did I know this was going to be a 30, 60, 90 triangle? Well, if we look here, we can see on our first triangle, we have 30 and we have 60. Well, what does that assume? We have to use the same thing here. So we have to use a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So whenever they give you the angles, that actually makes it a lot easier. So we have to use the 30, 60, 90 triangle because that's what it is. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and solve here. So let's look at where our variable is at. So x, that is the hypotenuse. I'm always going to start off with x because then I know, oh, I got to solve for a variable. Now, going to the general, which one is the hypotenuse? That is the 2, so that's going to go right under. Now, going back to the very first triangle, which one gives us a number? That's going to be the 5 square root of 3. Now, notice that is the long leg. Then on the other triangle, which one is the long leg? Oh, that is our square root of 3 here. So I'm going to use that. Okay. Now, before I'm going to actually cross multiply here, because I think this would be a lot easier, do you notice anything that we can cancel out first? Yeah, we can cancel out the square root of 3's because there's one in the numerator and one in the denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. X over 2 equals 5. Now, what will we put in the denominator underneath that 5? It is going to be a 1 because we have nothing left, and you can't put 0. That would not make sense. So 1 has to go there. Now we can cross multiply. So I have x times 1 gives me x, and 5 times 2 gives me 10. There's nothing else to simplify. That's my answer. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and try the very last one, number 6. Okay, let's see what you got for this one here. Okay, let's label. Okay, across from the 90-degree angle, that is our hypotenuse. Okay, across from the 30-degree is going to be our short leg. And across from the 60 degrees, that's going to be our long leg. Always, always label. It's going to help you guys. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and draw our triangle kind of just like this. So it goes like this. There you go. So we got 90, 60, and 30. So across from the 90 is our hypotenuse, which that is going to be 2. Okay, and then across from the 30, that's going to be our 1. That's our shorter leg. And then from the 60 is square root of 3. Okay, let me label. Okay. Now, once again, how did I know I was going to use the 30, 60, 90 triangle? Well, I think hopefully it's obvious here. If we look on our our first triangle, and we have a 30, we got a 60, and we got a 90. So we kind of have to use, right, a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay. So these are going to be a little bit easier because they're probably always going to give you at least one of those angles. They kind of have to, so you know that you're using a 30, 60, 90. Okay, let's set up our proportion. We use x. Notice x is a hypotenuse. So if we go to our general, which one's the hypotenuse? It is the 2. Going back to our first one, where's the number at? It is at 31. Don't use the angles, you got to use the sides. So 31, that is our short leg. So we go over here, what is our short leg? That's going to be 1. Okay, let's cross multiply. So I have x times 1 gives me x, and 31 times 2, that should give me 62. There's nothing else to simplify, so that'll be our answer. Okay, make sure if you have any questions that you contact me, and make sure you work on the homework assignment. See you guys later.